What's up, everyone? Chris Yandel here for Channelfireball.com, and welcome to another edition of Audio Articles, where we bring you articles written by the top Magic the Gathering pros in audio form, so you can listen on the go wherever and whenever you want for free. We've also got a lot of great content on YouTube, so head over to YouTube and search for Channel Fireball and ring the bell next to the subscribe button to have access to all the videos that our pros are making just for you. We want to make it as easy as possible for you to listen to the podcast, so if you have an iPhone, ask Siri to play the most recent episode of Channel Fireball's podcast, and you're all set. Today's article is written by Brian Demars, and he's going to talk about No Ban List Modern. Thanks for being with us today, and here is No Ban List Modern, No Problem by Brian Demars. One of the more interesting events on the Magic horizon is the huge No Ban List Modern event scheduled to take place this weekend at SCGCON. Let me be the first to say that I love when weird and wacky formats are given the spotlight, if only for a moment, because these types of tournaments highlight one of the elements I believe to be most special about Magic: deck building and working with unknown information. When it comes to the unknown, No Ban List Modern might as well be the upside down. Everybody has their ideas about how it'll work and what's good, but very few people have ever played a tournament. I've done a couple of small local events over the years, but there are simply not many opportunities to play fringe formats in actual events, and especially not large ones. When I set out to write this article, my idea was to paint a picture of the format and the metagame. But after some exhaustive internet searches, I realized it was going to be a tall task. There isn't a ton of relevant information that's easily accessible, and the information that does exist, much of it's dated and are reports that draw conclusions where the sample size is too small and narrow to be reliable. Not that these sources are not useful. I'm thankful that people took the time to share their thoughts, otherwise there would be little to work with. The point is that No Ban List Modern doesn't have a clearly defined metagame to paint, which contributes to the fun and excitement. What I can't give you is a picture of what the metagame looks like with data and metagame percentages. But what I can give you is a look at several of the decks that I think are powerful enough to give you a shot at stringing wins together. Or on the other hand, decks that would be prudent to account for. It's cool. I'm with the band. The easiest place to start is by looking at the ban cards that have been made legal. These are obviously problematic for balanced tournament play, and so it makes a lot of sense that you'd want to utilize and even build around them. Here's the list. Ancient Den, Birthing Pod, Blazing Shoal, Chrome Mox, Cloud Post, Dark Depths, Deathrite Shaman, Dig Through Time, Dread Return, Eye of Ugin, Gitaxian Probe, Glimpse of Nature, Golgari Grave Troll, Great Furnace, Green Sun Zenith, Hypergenesis, Mental Misstep, Ponder, Preordained, Punishing Fire, Rite of Flame, Seed of Synod, Second Sunrise, Seething Song, Sensei's Divining Top, Skull Clamp, Splinter Twin, Stoneforge Mystic, Summer Bloom, Treasure Cruise, Tree of Tales, Umezawa's Jit, and Vault of Whispers. Whew. It's kind of funny how I'd almost forgotten how big that ban list is. There's something for everyone on this list. Whether you want to storm off, clamp it up, have an affinity for artifact lands, or countertop your way to the top, the list has a treat for you. Assumptions. Whether you're actually planning on playing in the event or just checking in on what the format might look like, there's a few assumptions that I can share based on my research and experience playing the format. The first is that you're likely to face a large swath of decks, which is counterintuitive. In the dark, I would assume that everybody would play the same handful of completely busted decks that are built around the most broken cards. Storm, Hypergenesis, and Elf Clamp all come to mind. While I think these strategies are obvious and busted, the format is much bigger than a handful of decks. Remember that people are playing this format for love and for fun, which means that it's a locus of brewing and rogue ideas. The rogue factor is accentuated by the fact that reliable data and information simply doesn't exist. It's not like Legacy or Modern where you can look at the metagame winner's percentage and draw obvious conclusions about what you should play. Players are left to their gut to make decisions, which means personal preference, nostalgia for certain cards and strategies, and small sample size data and experience come into play for making decisions. My assumption is that if there were lots of data, it would be easy to draw conclusions, but without the cliff notes to explain the story to the masses, players will simply draw their own conclusions based upon what they know, what they enjoy, and what they feel comfortable playing. In many ways, a format and tournament like this is exactly what Magic should be, or used to be, rather than how it is typically played in the modern information sharing age. Play something you like. Play something powerful. Play a strategy you understand, and be prepared to deal with fast combo decks. Broken deck list, the bad guys. Let's look at some of the known commodities. First up, we have Storm by Connor Jacob. For lands, 3 Flooded Strand, 4 Scalding Tarn, 1 Shivan Reef, 2 Steam Vents, 3 Island, and 1 Mountain. For spells, 1 Chrome Mox, 4 Desperate Ritual, 3 Faithless Looting, 4 Gitaxian Probe, 4 Manamorphose, 4 Past in Flames, 4 Ponder, 4 Preordain, 2 Pyretic Ritual, 4 Rite of Flame, 4 Seething Song, 4 Thought Scour, 1 Treasure Cruise, and 3 Grape Shot. In the sideboard, 2 Blood Moon, 2 Defense Grid, 2 Echoing Truth, 2 Empty the Warrens, 3 Mental Misstep, 2 Shatterstorm. Storm is an obvious good deck. The archetype is already close to the top tier of current Modern, and this list gets to play a ton of banned cards. I believe some similar version of Storm is likely the level 1 best deck in the format. It's too broken not to be a solid choice, and I believe that conclusion is too obvious not to be seen by 99% of players. Based on the fact that I play Storm nearly exclusively in Modern, there's a high chance that I'll play a version of this deck in the event. It wasn't so long ago that Infect was top dog in Modern, and this version gets to play Blazing Shoal. Blazing Infect by Colin Bradley. For lands, 3 Breeding Pool, 4 Misty Rainforest, 1 Overgrown Tomb, 1 Verdant Catacombs, 4 Windswept Heath, 2 Forest, 4 Inkmoth Nexus, 1 Island. For creatures, 4 Blighted Agent, 4 Glistener Elf. For spells, 2 Blasphemous Act, 4 Blazing Shoal, 1 Dragonstorm, 4 Gitaxian Probe, 1 Green Sun Zenith, 4 Mental Misstep, 3 Peer Through Depths, 4 Ponder, 1 Preordain, 1 Searing Wind, 3 Spell Pierced, 3 Vines of the Vastwood, 1 Worldfire. And in the sideboard, 3 Abrupt Decay, 2 Dismember, 1 Gaia's Blessing, 2 Mindbreak Trap, 3 Relic of Progenitus, 3 Spellskite, and 1 Viridian Corruptor. Infect is a straight turn 2 kill deck if I've ever seen one. I love that this deck gets to play Mental Misstep in the main deck and can use it to protect its own combo as well as buy time against other all-in decks. Next up we have Elves by Joseph Home. For lands, 1 Nykthos Shrine of Nyx, 2 Overgrown Tomb, 1 Pendelhaven, 4 Verdant Catacombs, 1 Windswept Heath, 2 Wooded Foothills, 5 Forests. For creatures, 2 Dryad Arbor, 1 Arbor Elf, 1 Craterhoof Behemoth, 4 Deathrite Shaman, 4 Dwynen's Elite, 3 Elvish Mystic, 4 Elvish Visionary, 1 Essence Warden, 1 Gaia's Herald, 4 Heritage Druid, 4 Nettle Sentinel, 1 Reclamation Sage, and 2 Shaman of the Pack. For spells, 4 Glimpse of Nature, 4 Green Sun Zenith, and 4 Skullclamp. In the sideboard, 4 Abrupt Decay, 2 Creeping Corrosion, 1 Essence Warden, 4 Inquisition of Kozilek, 1 Reclamation Sage, 1 Scavenging Ooze, and 2 Thoughtseize. Elves is another strong contender that benefits greatly from utilizing banned cards. If you want to draw your entire deck, well, this is the deck for you. Glimpse Elves dominated Old Extended, and this list picks up Deathrite Shaman, Skullclamp, and Deathrite Shaman. Yes, I realize I said Deathrite Shaman twice. That's because it's a really good card that the deck gets. Okay, moving forward. It's flexible to a point and dense on threats, but the power factor of simply crashing over the top of opponents is the draw to sleeve up green cards. Jeff's No Ban List Dredge from an anonymous player. For lands, 4 City of Brass, 4 Dakmor Salvage, 4 Mana Confluence, and 4 Spirebluff Canal. For creatures, 4 Insolent Neonate, 4 Bloodghast, 4 Necromoeba, 4 Stinkweed Imp, 4 Fate Stitcher, 2 Flamekin Zealot, 4 Golgari Grave Troll, and 2 Bedlam Reveler. For spells, 4 Faithless Looting, 4 Cathartic Reunion, 4 Dread Return, and 4 Bridge from Below. This deck didn't have a sideboard. When people are allowed to do truly broken things in truly broken formats, it seems that Dredge is always in the mix. I stumbled across this list, even though he didn't have a sideboard, and like the designer's take on the archetype. Dread Return is a big game in a Dredge deck, as it enables extremely quick kills via Flamekin Zealot and zombie tokens generated from Bridge from Below. The ability to use Dread Return makes the archetype much faster and in step with a Legacy or Vintage style list, rather than having the feel of a modern deck. Do not underestimate Dredge. Pack some graveyard hate if you're going to play in this format. Hypergenesis by another anonymous player. For lands, 4 City of Brass, 3 Copperline Gorge, 4 Forbidden Orchard, 1 Gemstone Caverns, 4 Gemstone Mine, 4 Reflecting Pool, and 1 Seachrome Coast. For creatures, 4 Simian Spirit Guide, 3 Urabrask the Hidden, 4 Chancellor of the Tangle, 3 Terastodon, 3 Emrakul the Eon's Torn, and 3 Progenitus. For spells, 3 Hypergenesis, 3 Compulsive Research, 4 Demonic Dread, 2 Dismember, 4 Violent Outburst, 2 Ardent Plea, and 1 Omniscience. In the sideboard, 1 Anger of the Gods, 4 Leyline of Sanctity, 2 Mindbreak Trap, 4 Ricochet Trap, and 4 Ingot Chewer. Hypergenesis is another one of those truly broken decks. It's basically like Living End after drinking 5 energy drinks. Obnoxious. Get it? Energy drinks make the deck hyper? But the deck only gets to play 1 banned card, but it's a good one. Also, since the deck is trying to cascade into it, it's really like the list gets to play a bunch of extra copies of its signature spell. Between the Chancellors, Spirit Guides, and Caverns, the deck has a lot of fast mana, which means that it'll reliably put its signature spell onto the stack, assuming a Cascade spell is drawn, on the second turn, but it can turn 1 people as well. The format is pretty crazy, so be prepared for a wild ride. I'm looking forward to the event this weekend and getting a chance to play some awesome formats. Between no ban list, modern, and vintage, I'm going to be in Magic the Gathering paradise. I mostly touched on what I believe to be the format-defining unfair broken decks, but there are other levels to explore. Counterbalance Top is legal after all. If you've got a great list or a great idea for a list, be sure to drop it in the comments section if you'd like to share. If you're a no ban list specialist, the comment section of this article is where you're going to shine. I'm sure everyone working on lists would love to hear your insights. I spent a lot of time looking for information, and it's sparse and spread out. My goal for today's article is to create a baseline for individuals planning to attend the event, and hopefully the comments can serve as a space where people who are interested can discuss and refine ideas. I started with what I believe to be the important level 1 basics of the format. But if there is sufficient interest in the comments, I'd be happy to extend the discussion and feature some of the level 2 decks I've encountered, Countertop, Delver, etc. So if you'd like more no ban list content, make your voice heard. Personally, I love these types of formats and I'm excited for the opportunity to play them in large events. I'd play Storm because Storm is great, but there are a lot of really enticing options. What would you play? That does it for this episode of Audio Articles. Make sure to head over to channelfireball.com and leave Brian a comment about what you thought about today's article, or you can hit him up on Twitter at BrianDemars1. Also, make sure to check out cfbevents.com. You'll find all the information about the upcoming GPs there. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter, and make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel. Thanks for joining us today, and I hope to see you soon. And until then, peace.